Women often chase those who act indifferent because scarcity feels valuable and distance creates curiosity. Emotional highs and lows trigger attachment, while past wounds blur self-worth. Chasing becomes a game of ego, not love. True power lies in knowing your value. Stop running after those who see you as nothing. There is something inherently magnetic about scarcity. When a person is always available, their presence becomes ordinary. When someone is constantly giving attention, admiration, or affection, it loses its power. But when a person is elusive, when they don't bend over backward to be seen or to be chased, their value skyrockets in the mind of those observing them. Scarcity is not about manipulation or games. It is about the natural law of desire. We are wired to crave what feels limited. This is why women often find themselves drawn to men who act indifferent. The lack of availability triggers curiosity. The lack of constant attention creates intrigue. It is the absence that shapes fascination, not the abundance of presence. When a man seems detached, it awakens something primal. Women are biologically and emotionally conditioned to notice a challenge, to see a prize that is not easily claimed. This does not mean they are shallow. It means their attention is wired to respect boundaries, to recognize strength, and to be drawn to someone who maintains their own energy rather than bending to please others. When a man acts indifferent, it forces a woman to project value onto him. She starts imagining qualities, intentions, and emotions that may not even exist. The scarcity creates a space for admiration, longing, and investment, things that unconditional availability cannot produce. Scarcity also triggers reflection. When someone is always there, we rarely pause to notice their qualities. But when they pull away, when they withhold themselves just enough, the mind begins to assess and analyze. Why is he distant? What does he want? Am I enough? This reflection is a silent power. It awakens desire without a single word, without effort or persuasion. The mind becomes the battlefield, and scarcity is the strategist that ensures attention, respect, and longing are focused where they truly belong. Furthermore, scarcity teaches self-restraint, patience, and control. Those who understand the power of scarcity do not chase validation. They create their own presence, their own energy, and their own value. They allow women to approach, to notice, to respect the space they hold. It is this measured absence that generates admiration and desire. Scarcity is not about cruelty or emotional games. It is about maintaining integrity, setting boundaries, and showing that you are not defined by others' approval. The more a man embodies this, the more he elevates himself in the eyes of those around him, creating an aura of strength and worth that cannot be manufactured through constant attention or appeasement. In the end, scarcity is a mirror. It reflects confidence, self-respect, and unshakable inner value. It makes women chase not because they are manipulative or weak, but because they are responding to a deep instinctual recognition of power. When something is scarce, it becomes priceless. And that is why those who act like they are nothing often hold so much invisible power, commanding attention and desire without ever asking for it. There is a magnetic force in unpredictability, a strange pull in someone who is warm one moment and distant the next. This is what creates the emotional roller coaster effect. Women are deeply sensitive to emotional cues, and when a man alternates between attention and withdrawal, it ignites a fire that simple consistency cannot. It is not about cruelty or intentional manipulation. It is about how the human mind responds to uncertainty. The highs feel exhilarating, the lows create longing, and the mind becomes addicted to the cycles of emotional reward. Every brief moment of connection, every flicker of acknowledgement becomes a treasure because it is not guaranteed. The emotional roller coaster works because it taps into desire and hope simultaneously. When a woman is met with coldness or distance, she begins to question herself. Did I do something wrong? Does he not care? These questions stir a deep need to understand, to seek validation, and to reconnect. Then, when warmth returns, when attention, words, or gestures appear, the relief is powerful, almost intoxicating. Her mind begins to associate this unpredictability with excitement, with passion, and even with love. The emotional highs become rewards that reinforce her pursuit, while the lows keep her invested, desperate to regain that fleeting connection. This pattern is amplified by the way women are wired to value emotional engagement. Emotional connection is often mistaken for affection or desire. A man who alternates between attention and indifference creates a heightened awareness, forcing her to pay attention, to analyze, to care more than she might for someone consistent and fully available. The mind begins to attach significance to every small gesture, every word, every glance, because the uncertainty makes them rare and valuable. The emotional roller coaster taps into the deepest instinct of pursuit, drawing women in and making them linger longer than they intended. What makes this effect so powerful is that it is often subconscious. Women may not even realize why they are chasing, why their thoughts are consumed by someone who acts detached. The unpredictability hijacks the mind, creating a push and pull that feels like necessity rather than choice. Every rise and fall in attention triggers dopamine, excitement, and hope, rewards that are biologically addictive. It is a cycle that builds attachment faster than consistency ever could. Yet this effect is not about cruelty, it is about presence with boundaries. Those who understand this do not create chaos intentionally. They simply do not allow themselves to be defined by others' expectations. By maintaining emotional independence, by not bending to constant demands for validation, they naturally evoke curiosity, investment, and desire. The roller coaster is a reflection of self-respect and unshakable value, not a game of control. Women chase because the emotional rhythm stirs something primal, a mix of longing, fascination, and recognition of someone untouchable. In the end, the emotional roller coaster effect shows that power is not in constant giving, but in measured presence. It awakens attention, desire, and emotional investment in a way nothing else can. Those who ride this wave with awareness understand that they are not manipulating. They are simply allowing the natural responses of the mind to reveal what is truly valuable. It is the highs and lows, the push and pull that makes women chase, not indifference alone, but the thrill of the unpredictable, the ungraspable, and the untouchable. The validation trap is one of the most subtle and powerful forces that keeps women chasing men who act indifferent. It is the silent pull of proving worth, of seeking acknowledgement from someone who withholds it. When attention, care, or admiration is scarce, it triggers an inner drive to earn it, to be seen as valuable and to feel confirmed in one's significance. This is not about superficiality. It is about the deep human need for recognition, and it becomes amplified when someone seems unattainable or distant. The mind interprets scarcity as a challenge, and the heart interprets it as a test of love, creating a cycle that is hard to break. When a man does not freely give praise, affection, or approval, it awakens the need to prove oneself. Women begin analyzing every action, every word, every nuance, searching for ways to elicit recognition. The desire to be acknowledged becomes consuming, and chasing becomes less about genuine connection and more about validation. Every small moment of attention or appreciation becomes monumental, creating a reinforcement loop that keeps them invested emotionally. The harder someone seems to earn, the more energy is poured into the pursuit. This is the trap. It is not about the person's value, but the perception of their power to grant it. The validation trap feeds off insecurity and longing. If a woman feels uncertain about her worth or fears rejection, she unconsciously seeks external affirmation. The more distant a man appears, the more the mind interprets it as a sign that approval must be earned. This transforms simple interactions into elaborate tests of self-worth. Every smile, every word, every gesture becomes a signal to decode, and every lapse in attention becomes a trigger for effort. The chase becomes a mirror of internal desire for validation, reflecting unmet needs, past patterns, and a yearning to be recognized. What makes the validation trap so compelling is that it disguises itself as love. Women feel invested, emotionally charged, and connected, believing their efforts are building intimacy. In reality, they are caught in a cycle where emotional energy is spent not on shared connection, but on gaining acknowledgement. The pursuit of validation creates tension, longing, and obsession because it plays directly into the brain's reward system. Each small reward, attention, a compliment, a moment of care, is magnified precisely because it is rare and uncertain. Breaking free from the validation trap requires awareness and self-recognition. Those who understand their own worth are not driven by the need for external approval. They allow themselves to receive attention and affection without dependency, creating space where admiration becomes genuine rather than forced. The trap is not about the man. It is about the unseen influence of scarcity, distance, and withheld recognition on the mind and heart. Women chase not because of love alone, but because the need for validation is awakened, compelling them to invest energy where it may not be returned. The validation trap is a reflection of inner gaps projected outward. It reveals the magnetic power of those who do not bend, who maintain boundaries, and who refuse to be defined by others' demands. In chasing validation, women are not weak. They are responding to a deeply ingrained psychological pattern, a primal recognition of power, challenge, and scarcity. It is a lesson in desire, attachment, and human behavior that speaks to the very core of emotional dynamics. There is an undeniable allure in mystery. Humans are instinctively drawn to the unknown, to the things they cannot fully understand or predict. When a man maintains an air of mystery, when he does not reveal everything at once or make himself entirely accessible, it creates an invisible pull that is impossible to ignore. Women, in particular, are naturally curious beings. They want to understand, to decode, to uncover hidden layers. Mystery triggers imagination, desire, and investment in a way that openness cannot. It is the unspoken, the unshared, and the unexplained that captivates attention and fuels pursuit. The mystery factor is not about deception or dishonesty. It is about presence with restraint. When a man does not lay all his cards on the table, when he maintains his own life, passions, and boundaries, he becomes infinitely more intriguing. Women sense that there is depth beneath the surface, a world they cannot fully grasp. This lack of complete access awakens curiosity. It sparks the desire to know, to experience, and to connect. Every small revelation becomes a reward. Every glimpse of vulnerability a treasure. Mystery compels observation, reflection, and emotional investment. It is the mind's fascination with the hidden that keeps the heart chasing. Part of what makes mystery so magnetic is the way it activates projection. When a man does not reveal everything, women begin to imagine what lies beneath. They project qualities, intentions, and depth onto him, creating a perception that often feels larger than reality. The unknown becomes a canvas for desire, a space where admiration, fascination, and longing can flourish. Mystery challenges the mind to work harder, to engage more deeply, and to invest more energy into understanding something that is not easily accessible. This cognitive and emotional engagement strengthens attachment and interest. Mystery also creates respect. When a man is not fully available, when he maintains his own boundaries in life, it signals strength, independence, and self-respect. Women recognize this, even if unconsciously. They are drawn not to neediness, but to someone who holds their own space and energy. Mystery generates an aura of value, a sense that this person is not easily swayed or consumed by others' expectations. It is in the gaps, in the unexplored corners of personality and emotion that intrigue and admiration take root. The danger lies not in the presence of mystery, but in misunderstanding it. Mystery is powerful when it is authentic and consistent, not when it is used to manipulate or confuse. The magnetic force comes from maintaining one's own life, one's own purpose, and one's own energy. It is the balance between presence and distance, availability and reserve, openness and secrecy that creates fascination. Women chase not because they are weak, but because the mystery awakens a natural drive to explore, understand, and experience the depth they sense but cannot fully define. The mystery factor proves that invisibility has its own power. It is not about what is shown, but what is left unsaid, unexplored, and unavailable. Depth, intrigue, and the unknown compel pursuit. When someone is mysterious, they hold an invisible authority over attention and desire. The mind, hungry for understanding, and the heart, longing for connection, combine in a potent force that draws women toward the one who is not fully revealed, the one who cannot be completely grasped, and the one whose essence feels just out of reach. There is a tension within women that often goes unnoticed, a silent struggle between ego and heart. When a man acts distant or indifferent, the heart desires connection, warmth, and reassurance, while the ego resists vulnerability. Pride insists on self-respect, and dignity demands distance. This internal conflict is what keeps women chasing. Their heart is drawn to the possibility of love, affection, and validation, while their ego whispers, "Do not lower yourself, do not chase, maintain your value." It is a battlefield where emotion and self-perception collide, creating a powerful force of pursuit. The heart wants what it cannot have. Every glimpse of attention, every word of warmth, and every moment of acknowledgement becomes magnified because it is scarce. The emotional investment grows because scarcity amplifies desire. Women feel drawn to the one who withholds, not just because of attraction, but because their heart is compelled to seek what it instinctively knows is rare and valuable. They want to connect, to feel chosen, to be the one who breaks through the walls and reaches the depth of his attention. This is natural. The heart cannot ignore the pull of someone who challenges it, who remains just beyond reach. The ego, however, complicates this desire. Pride resists humiliation, dignity resists dependence, and self-worth resists chasing. The ego warns that pursuing someone who acts indifferent undermines personal value. It reminds her that worth is not defined by another's attention. Yet the heart's longing often overpowers logic. This push and pull creates tension, an internal storm where desire clashes with pride. Women chase not because they are naive, but because the heart's yearning battles the ego's self-preservation, and the result is relentless pursuit. The conflict itself creates energy, fascination, and emotional attachment. This struggle is intensified by the illusion of control. Women believe that persistence, effort, or emotional labor can influence the outcome. They feel that if they can break through the distance, earn the attention, or awaken affection, they will have succeeded. The ego tries to maintain boundaries, but the heart argues that persistence equals love. The chase is fueled by the hope of resolution, of winning the heart that seems just out of reach. This is why women often return to the same man repeatedly, even after disappointment. They are caught between desire and self-respect, between heart and ego. Understanding this conflict reveals a deeper truth. Chasing is rarely about genuine love alone. It is about the tension between longing and self-worth, between vulnerability and pride, between connection and dignity. Those who remain unattainable create this dynamic naturally. They do not force it. They simply exist in a way that commands attention, evokes desire, and challenges women to navigate the push and pull of their own hearts. The ego versus heart conflict explains why women pursue men who act indifferent. It is the invisible force of internal struggle, the silent conversation between desire and dignity that keeps them invested. The more the ego resists, the more the heart fights to bridge the gap. It is this tension, this battle within, that fuels the chase, making it less about the man and more about the irresistible magnetism of scarcity, challenge, and unfulfilled longing. Much of why women chase men who act indifferent is rooted in past conditioning, patterns ingrained long before the present moment. From childhood experiences to previous relationships, women learn what to expect, what to tolerate, and what to pursue. If early bonds were inconsistent, if love or attention was given sporadically, the mind internalizes the message that affection must be earned, that availability is never guaranteed, and that desire is strongest for what is difficult to attain. These lessons stay hidden, shaping behavior in ways she may not consciously understand, creating cycles that repeat until awareness is awakened. When a woman encounters a man who is emotionally distant, unavailable, or unpredictable, it taps into these deep-seated patterns. The sporadic attention, the cold moments, the fleeting warmth, they mirror early experiences of inconsistency. The mind recognizes the pattern and unconsciously reacts, producing a drive to chase, to seek, and to win. It is not a conscious choice. It is a conditioned response, an echo of experiences where emotional effort felt like the only way to secure love or recognition. Past conditioning creates fertile ground for attachment to form around scarcity, indifference, and challenge. This conditioning also reinforces self-doubt. When attention is withheld, old messages resurface. Am I enough? Did I do something wrong? Why does he pull away? These questions are not new. They are rehearsed by the mind from previous encounters, repeated experiences of unavailability that left a mark. The pursuit is fueled not by attraction alone, but by the unconscious desire to resolve past uncertainties, to rewrite old stories where love was conditional or elusive. Chasing becomes a way to heal old wounds, even if the current situation does not merit such investment. Past conditioning also explains why the chase feels compelling rather than painful. The patterns are familiar: the emotional highs and lows, the uncertainty, the struggle for acknowledgement. These experiences mirror what she has known before. Familiarity breeds comfort, even in discomfort. The heart clings to the narrative it has always followed, confusing repetition with meaning. Emotional investment feels natural because it is rooted in memory and subconscious expectation. The deeper the past influence, the stronger the pull toward behaviors that reinforce it, regardless of whether they serve her present self. Understanding past conditioning illuminates a profound truth. The chase is often less about the man and more about unresolved patterns. Women are not weak or irrational. They are responding to the invisible strings of experience, to a subconscious blueprint shaped by earlier encounters. Recognition of this allows for conscious choice. Awareness gives the power to break the cycle, to honor self-worth, and to resist chasing those who act indifferent. Past conditioning explains the invisible magnetism of distance and scarcity. It reveals that the pursuit is as much about healing old wounds as it is about present desire. Until these patterns are understood, the cycle will continue, drawing women to those who reflect familiar echoes of neglect, withdrawal, and challenge, keeping the heart engaged, the mind invested, and the soul searching for resolution in places that may never truly satisfy. The illusion of control is one of the most powerful reasons women continue chasing men who act indifferent. There is a quiet belief that if she tries hard enough, if she invests enough energy, if she gives enough care or attention, she can influence the outcome. The mind convinces her that persistence equals power, that effort can change the unchangeable. She believes that by understanding him, responding to his moods, or meeting his standards, she can secure affection and devotion. This illusion is seductive because it gives a sense of agency in a situation where, in reality, there is none. When a man acts distant, emotionally unavailable, or inconsistent, it triggers the need to control. Women instinctively analyze every action, every word, and every glance, searching for patterns that will allow them to predict behavior and gain leverage. She might ask herself, what can I do to make him notice me? How can I earn his attention? How can I make him care? These questions feed the illusion of control, creating a sense that if she just tries harder, she can influence his feelings or decisions. The problem is that true control never comes from effort or chasing. It comes from detachment and self-worth, which cannot be manufactured through emotional labor. The illusion of control is also reinforced by hope. Each small gesture, each rare display of attention feels like a reward that validates effort. The mind interprets it as proof that the strategy is working, that persistence will eventually lead to the desired outcome. This reinforces the chasing behavior, creating cycles of emotional investment where attention is scarce and desire is amplified. Women become caught in an endless pattern, mistaking the sporadic responses of another for tangible influence over his emotions or choices. This phenomenon is intensified by the human tendency to attach meaning to unpredictability. When behavior is inconsistent, the brain works overtime to find explanations, predict outcomes, and assert influence. Every action becomes a puzzle, every reaction a clue. The desire for control is a natural psychological response to uncertainty, but it becomes a trap when the other person is not invested in granting it. The more a woman believes she can steer his feelings, the more she invests herself emotionally, even when the reality is that he remains detached and uncommitted. Breaking free from the illusion of control requires self-awareness. It demands the understanding that effort does not equal affection, persistence does not equal loyalty, and chasing does not equal connection. True power lies in recognizing what is within one's control, one's own energy, choices, and self-respect, and releasing the desire to influence someone who is unwilling or incapable of reciprocating. When this awareness is awakened, the need to chase diminishes, desire shifts from others' validation to inner worth, and emotional energy is redirected towards self-respect and genuine connection. The illusion of control is the hidden force that keeps women engaged with men who act indifferent. It is not about weakness or obsession. It is about the mind seeking certainty, security, and influence where none exists. Understanding this reveals why the chase occurs, why desire persists, and why emotional investment flows toward those who withhold. The moment awareness replaces illusion, freedom and self-worth emerge, dissolving the invisible chains of the chase. The harsh reality check is the moment when the illusion shatters, when the pursuit no longer feels exciting and the truth can no longer be ignored. Women chasing men who act indifferent often live in a state of hope, believing that persistence, effort, or emotional labor will eventually unlock attention and affection. But reality has a way of revealing what the heart refuses to see. Desire alone cannot secure respect, admiration, or commitment. The man who withholds attention, who treats you as though you are nothing, does so because it is his choice, not because you lack effort, value, or worth. Accepting this truth is painful, yet it is essential. This reality check is not about punishment or judgment. It is about clarity. Women often come to this point when exhaustion replaces excitement, when the chase no longer fills the emptiness it once masked. They realize that no amount of chasing will change the essence of someone who does not prioritize them. The highs of attention, the brief flashes of acknowledgement, and the rare moments of warmth are fleeting and do not define a relationship, affection, or respect. The moment of clarity comes when they understand that desire cannot substitute for recognition, that chasing cannot replace self-respect, and that investing energy in someone indifferent is a misalignment with true value. The harsh reality check also reveals the cost of chasing. Emotional energy, time, and self-worth are all invested in pursuit, often leaving women drained, anxious, and doubting their own value. The longer the cycle continues, the deeper the attachment, the stronger the hope, and the heavier the disappointment. It becomes evident that the pattern is not sustainable, that chasing someone who treats you as nothing is not a reflection of your inadequacy, but a reflection of their inability to value what they already have. This awareness, though difficult, is liberating. It is during this reality check that women begin to question their patterns, their motivations, and their own boundaries. They start seeing the truth that attraction to indifference is often a projection of unmet needs, past conditioning, and the unconscious desire for validation. The harsh truth forces a confrontation with self-worth. If someone treats you as nothing, no amount of chasing can rewrite the story. The power to break free lies not in persuading someone to care, but in choosing not to chase, in reclaiming energy, dignity, and inner respect. The clarity that comes from the harsh reality check is transformative. It shifts focus from external approval to internal recognition, from longing for attention to embracing self-value. Women who reach this understanding no longer feel compelled to chase. They understand that respect and admiration are earned through presence, integrity, and self-assuredness, not through effort expended on someone indifferent. They begin to attract attention naturally, not through pursuit, but through the magnetic power of confidence and self-worth. The harsh reality check is the awakening that frees women from cycles of chasing. It is the recognition that desire alone cannot command respect, that effort cannot replace value, and that emotional labor cannot force affection. It is painful, necessary, and empowering, and it marks the moment when chasing ends, self-worth rises, and true understanding of human dynamics emerges. In the end, the reason women chase men who act indifferent is never simple. It is a complex interplay of scarcity, curiosity, emotional highs and lows, and deep-seated patterns shaped by past experiences. It is the illusion of control, the pull of validation, and the conflict between heart and ego that keeps them invested. But the ultimate lesson is clear. No chase can replace self-worth, no pursuit can create respect, and no desire can substitute for value. True power lies not in running after someone who withholds, but in recognizing your own worth, honoring your boundaries, and commanding respect through presence, confidence, and self-assuredness. When you stop chasing, clarity emerges, attraction naturally follows, and the energy you invest returns to the only place that truly matters, within yourself.